of the quarterfinal post-game lobby.
Very special.
Very special. Post-game lobby, indeed. Joined here by Stress, by Deficio, and still Sencooks as well. First up, we got to get it out of the way. Yes, you were right. The Universe of Love won, as you predicted. But we want to take a closer look at the final game as the winner interview gets set up. More specifically, the picks and bans, you guys had a thing or two to say, starting off with the fact that Giant started off with locking in their 2 solo laners straight off the bat, showing all of their cards. And the only bad thing from the side of UOL was the Kassadin, you guys said?
Yeah, Giant's pick and ban phase was really bad in this game here. Show both your solo laners first rotation, and then you end up blind picking your AD carry, so you also end up in a bad matchup bot lane because you didn't show the Sivir.
Alistar.
And let's talk about the last pick as well.
Alistar. You can save last pick for support, and you pick Alistar into Lucian. And Kassadin.
And Braum.
I'm really clueless. I don't understand.
Yeah, this pick and ban phase was really bad from Giants. It didn't straight up, it almost straight up lost them the game. It didn't make it easier to win this game here in the end.
I'm going to cut you off because I hear that the interview is ready, so we're going to hear more in just a second. So Sifa, take it away.
Thank you so much, guys. We'll hear more about your breakdown soon, I am sure. But I am joined here by the victorious Exile and Vizicsacsi after a commanding final game against Giants. Now, my first question is for you, Vizicsacsi. You showed a really rough performance when we saw you in the spring playoffs, but this time around, you absolutely crushed it. I just wanted to know what changed for you between spring and summer.
I just think we have a more solid roster right now. We are good as a team together, we have good synergy, and we enjoy playing with each other, which was not really the case in my last 2 playoffs. We always had team troubles, and I think we didn't have good practice either, so that was just showing off on stage as well. And for me, I tried really hard the previous playoffs to try to contribute as much as I can to the victory, but this time I didn't over-focus on it, but instead trusted my team that they can help me out and we can win together.
I mean, you guys definitely showed a game 1 totally in your favor. They were a little bit closer, but of course in that final game, you guys brought it back one more time. Now over to you, Exile. Win or lose in the coming week, you guys have guaranteed a spot at Krakow. How does it feel for you in your first split to be guaranteed a spot on that massive stage?
I think it's pretty great, actually, to prove that we are top 4, especially because we had a really rough time in the first weeks, and we just showed that we can improve like this much, and this means a lot.
And I think, obviously, everyone saw it today. Looking ahead, of course, at your coming matchup in the semifinals, you guys are now guaranteed to face G2, as this is the lowest seed coming out. Are you nervous at all about the G2 matchup? Chachi, we'll start with you.
No, I wouldn't say we are nervous, since we even played G2 in scrims as well, and we don't think that they are like invincible or anything. They have their weak points as well, and I think if we practice good and we prepare good strategies, we can beat them.
Absolutely. And of course, Exile, what are your thoughts?
I think so too. It's just we practice a lot, and then we have a really good chance to beat them. So it's really up to us.
All right, well, good to hear you guys still coming in confident after that series win. It's got to feel good. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you.
We're going to head back over to the analyst desk to further break that set down.
Well then, so to summarize, looking ahead to the semifinal versus G2, where are the weaknesses then? Because Vizicsacsi versus Expect, that might be a good matchup for them.
Yeah, I think Chachi has the potential there. Expect is still making a name for himself here in Europe, and we've seen that when Chachi actually has things go his way, he can kind of play things out. I still see a couple of weaknesses when it comes to like not getting exploited by just having bad matchups. When it looks to the counter matchup, he needs then a lot of resources. He needs a lot of attention at that time to put the matchup back in his favor. So that's one area that G2 may be a little stronger with coming at them than Giants were.
Like also, there's more than just the top lane in
course.
this matchup. We have Sven,
Really?
Sven and Mithi.
There's one lane.
That's
Oh,
pretty crazy.
really? Well, we have Sven and Mithi versus Veritas and Hulisang. I think that's kind of goes
I
even
want
there.
to jump into that in just a second. I do want to give out the MVP award for the series. Vizicsacsi, we just heard from him. Exile could have been in as well. Great performances from the solo laners overall, which tipped the scales in the favor of the Unicorns of Love.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have been talking about Chachi so much this split here. He had a rough start. I have. We, as a group, have talked a lot about Chachi as well, because he's actually been really, really good. A lot of players even voted for him like as one of the best top laners we have right now, because he's a big carry for Unicorns. They need him to be a carry, and he was in this series. Whenever Maxlot didn't get to snowball Smitty J, then Chachi just took over.
It's interesting you say Deficio says that. He says a lot of things, Senkux. You'll realize that being around.
We as a team.
We always the royal we to cover up. It's okay, Deficio, don't worry. But
Wow.
for Chachi,
Well, you don't think so? You disagree?
hey, well, it's fine. Don't worry. We'll continue this tomorrow in our podcast.
Good,
It's good. We'll say a lot of things, I'm sure.
I really
Chachi, I think
Cha-cha.
you could have given this perhaps to Exile, looking at perhaps carry performances from individual games. I think Chachi as a whole in this series was doing a little bit more for the team at times, so I think it's fairly deserved.
Yeah, it definitely is. And now I want to get back into that matchup, obviously, that we just touched on. And the bracket, the Unicorns of Love, due to being a lower seed, will advance to face G2. That means that Splice will be playing the winner of H2K Fnatic, which I hope they're super excited about. And for Worlds implications, this means that Giants walks away with 20 championship points. They will be in the regional qualifier, but they will be the lowest seed, so all is not lost there. So what do we want to talk about first? About H2K or Fnatic versus Splice? I suggest we start with the UOL versus G2. You guys started to talk about the bottom lane. How much of an impact will that make from the bottom lane performance you've seen today?
Huge. Obviously, Sven and Mithi is the best 2v2 lane we have in Europe and in North America combined, and they can definitely challenge a lot of other bot lanes around the world. So I think there's a massive difference between them and the bot lane from Unicorns of Love. I also think Perks versus Exile, Perks, as long as he understands that he doesn't need to try and kill Exile and just let actually the bot lane do a lot of work together with Trick, then I think Perks and G2 will have a really solid foundation to win this matchup. Like, this is going to be tough for Unicorns.
I think it's not only Perks you have to look at versus Exile. I think it's both like the jungle duo and jungle mid duo. Like, I think Trick and the Perks was like, that was like what won G2 the last split of LCS, right? So I think they're way stronger 2v2, and I feel like that's the strongest point. Actually, it wasn't today. It was more the 2v2 top today from UOL, but mainly throughout the split, I feel like it was the 2v2 mid that they've relied a lot on. So I think that G2 will match that even better.
And I think the biggest discrepancy in that jungle matchup is when you look at consistency. Trick is like on par with his performances and player of the game to like potentially back-to-back be the MVP of the split. Obviously that voting hasn't come in yet, but when you look at his performances, whereas Move is a guy that goes like 0-10 or 10-0, and like he'll crush it when Snowball Exile, or he'll just have a game where he falls flat, whereas Trick is there every single game putting in a good performance.
Yeah. I think it's on Chachi, honestly, to carry Unicorns to the finals if they want to make it all the way, because I only see the top lane as like a weak lane for G2, and I say that like not like, oh, it's a terrible lane. I think Expect is still a fine top lane. I just don't think he's as good as some of the other ones, and he's not that important for the team. So if Chachi and Move together, as you said, the 2v2 with the disco as well, can shut down Expect and then snowball that into other lanes, that's kind of how Unicorns can win.
NA is about to start in about 10 minutes. They're setting up. This is their way of telling us, come on, get on with it.
Flicking the lights.
I think it was more telling that Expect doesn't have to disco, and then
If he doesn't disco, you know, Gigi's going to win.
Okay, well, speaking about bottom lanes, as you guys have, at the start of the show, we asked you to tweet at LOL Esports to tell us which team you think will best adapt to 614 and why. And we have a tweet from @starstro64 says, H2 what? H2K. Forgiven and Vander duo are going to dominate this patch. Now, there is so much to say about this tomorrow. H2K versus Fnatic versus Reckless and the Yellow Star. Take it away.
Now, I think the most interesting thing about this is I agree that it favors Forgiven and Vander, certainly. But I don't think Forgiven and Vander are going to do too much differently in any 2v2 settings than they would do if this was 614. If they end up in standard lanes, they're still going to do the same thing. Obviously, the reliability of getting that obviously every single game is going to be beneficial to them. But even in lane swaps, they were already becoming more proactive on the map and already making better early game moves than H2K had done all split with Freeze.
Also, this says Forgiven and Vander, but how have you guys thought Vander has done so far this split? Because he's always in the same breath as talking about the whole bottom lane, but you wouldn't say individually that he is miles above someone like Mickey, for instance.
I don't know. I think Vander has done fine throughout the split, but I think like him and Freeze didn't really make the greatest 2v2 like lane where you think, oh, these guys are gonna go really aggressive and 2v2 kill. Like, it wasn't like that. So I don't know. I think Vander is good. I think he's probably top 3 support, I would say. And then like with Forgiven in standard day, like it should be better for them, I think.
But I think putting him as the 3rd best support in Europe is fair. However, I feel like the field of supports in Europe this split has been fairly weak overall. I think there's Mithi and Mickey. And then there's kind of a jump down to like the next. Vander has had some good games, but he also had some really poor individual mistakes. that's what I'm hoping by bringing Forgiven and having hopefully a lot of practice in 2v2 now, like the last few weeks for H2K can kind of make it a little bit stronger, because Forgiven is going to be good 2v2. I don't think he's as good as he used to be, because like the guy stops playing and then he plays again, he stops playing. But I do trust in Forgiven and Vanda to win that 2v2 and give H2K an advantage from the bottom side.
From hearing what Vanda said in an interview we did with him a week or so ago, he was talking about how he has to be more vocal because Forgiven doesn't talk as much as Freeze does. And I actually think that is a benefit for H2K, because when Vanda is being more vocal in the 5 games we have as a sample size, H2K were making moves, as I was saying, on the map in the early game. So it may not necessarily be a 2v2 benefit, but I think Vanda may come into his own in his own words as he has to shot call a little bit more.
Yeah, I actually think it's kind of interesting that he said that he doesn't talk as much anymore, because him and Yankas was kind of known for being like the 2v2 duo in the jungle support synergy. So I thought it was kind of weird that he says that he didn't communicate as much. I guess because just Freeze in general talks more, but I don't think that's gonna hurt them too much, especially not when they play the whole split together last split.
Overall, though, H2K, now we mentioned like shot calling. I kind of feel like that's been like one of the biggest issues for H2K all split long, is that not only did Freeze talk a lot, Ryu is extremely loud whenever we listen to the teams communicate. Odoamna is extremely loud. When you cast in the other studio and you stand right next to them, you hear just 3 people screaming calls, and it's different calls. It's one guy's yelling for Baron, one guy's yelling for recall, one guy's yelling for engage. And it's crazy to listen to. So I definitely feel like H2K has made a ton of mistakes late game when it comes to like the key calls. Like, do we take Scuttle Crab or what? No, you don't. No, you recall here. You don't go for this one. And that's actually where they've lost a lot of games. Funny enough, H2K, despite being 4th place in regular season, have like the lowest amount of Barons out of all the top 6 teams. And a lot of times actually it's because when they are ahead, they mess it up at Baron, they throw it at Baron because of this communication problem.
It's funny how you should mention that about the other studio. It is messy communication, but the number of times during game where I've heard Odo go, I have TP, I'm TPing, and you just get to go, I think they're about to set up a TP play. H2K, they're going to go for this.
Nice prediction.
Like, I can predict. Thanks, Odo.
Also, when H2K had that crushing 5-0 week, they, as said by themselves, they hadn't been practicing with Forgiven whatsoever. It just came in dry. And now they have had 2 weeks to practice with them. What?
Yeah, they've had 2 weeks to practice with Forgiven. That's great.
Wait, who was the team they played against the last week?
They had the tiebreaker versus Fnatic in the end. And
that was tiebreaker.
I'm sure our stats people are going to tell us.
Yeah. Well, if I remember correctly, it wasn't like the biggest matches of
they were against Unicorns of Love in one of them.
Who are now semi-finalists.
Yes.
So they're 2-0 Unicorns. And then I don't remember the other game right now. But no, H2K actually looked much better. And I think, yeah, Forgiven came in and was an improvement over an AD carry who had wrist issues, obviously. But I think Ryu stepped up big time. Like, Ryu was like weak for, like, up and down for most of the split. And then last week, he got to play the Blanc 3 games. He was really good on all 3 games. The good old Ryu in the mid lane. And actually didn't make any mistakes. Also, his Talia game in last week was really, really good, where the first one he played earlier was really bad. So he stepped up, and he needs to be a strong player for H2K in playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. Like, Ryu was, I wouldn't say that good in the start. He was kind of disappointing to me in the start of the split. I thought like the way he was usually like the macro play mid lane, the really smart mid laner, but I feel like the things he did in both, I think in scrims and on stage was really questionable, and I didn't really like understand the thought process behind it, but I think he became better and better throughout the split, and his last week was really good for him.
There's a lot of interesting things in this matchup when you only look at one team, and then we look at their opponents on the other side for Fnatic, and there are almost as many questions, because while they haven't changed anybody, maybe even more, but they haven't changed a player really since the last couple of weeks, but everything behind the scenes has changed. True. How does that affect them? All of the questions about their players too, and their performance recently just all spring up, and as you said, could be more. Yeah,
definitely so, as well as all the mental influences of getting in fights on Twitter and this and that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this super serious. Like, maybe that does affect one player or the other. We don't know. We're not in their heads. I just heard that we are 2 minutes away from going over to North America. So with the info that we have now, and once again, the fantastic performance by the Unicorns of Love, making it to the semifinal, who is your 3 Worlds contestants from Europe, and how do they make it as a final point? So G2, no-brainer?
G2 will get into the final, and I think Splice will get into the final. G2 beats them in the final, so G2 goes away there. Splice then takes...
Gets the points, yeah.
Splice will either get through points or last seed in Gauntlet, so Splice will also make it, and I think H2K will be the 3rd team to join them.
Splice will win the split, and then G2 and H2K will make it.
That would be a very interesting scenario, because if Fnatic lose to H2K, Fnatic have a very tough time to get to Worlds. I already think it's tough enough, but if Splice win, I think the two are easy to pick.
Actually, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think the H2K versus Fnatic is probably like the most interesting one. I'm really not sure actually who's gonna get through of those, but
Splice on points, Splice on winning, Splice on
I expect us and you two, and then we're happy. Then we can be happy. 5 Danes.
Yeah, this question becomes a whole lot easier tomorrow. If H2K show up and crush Fnatic, it's like you can't really bet against them.
Yeah, definitely. So just to remind you guys, tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central European Summer Time, we'll have that fantastic best of 5 between Fnatic and H2K to determine who will face Splice in the semifinals. Oh my god, I can't wait for that matchup. It's going to be so hype.
So many different storylines, so many things to look at. I want to look at the bottom lane especially. Forgiven versus Reckless is going to be super hype. And also, again, which team looks to be the strongest of these two guys who can then make it to Worlds.
And do good at Worlds and represent.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I will also have a special pre-game lobby at 4:30 p.m. Central European Summertime. Logged on to facebook.com/LOL Esports. There we will be discussing the playoffs before the show. Now for us, it is time to close off. A big congratulations to the Unicorns of Love for making it to the semifinals. And we'll see Giants in the gauntlet. It's been a long, bumpy road to Worlds. It still is. But we're taking you along for the ride. Remember to join us again tomorrow, 5 p.m. H2K versus Fnatic. We'll be back then. Bye.
And we are in-game, ladies and gentlemen, for this best of 5, the quarterfinals here between Giants and the Unicorns of Love. Chachi now coming into the fight. The Maelstrom will find the second one. Max Law is getting pushed onto the tower, and Unicorns are looking for this dive. Sunstar with the triple kill. But Giants starting to lose this one out. 2 kills to the Unicorns of Love. They'll get the third on tonight. And Exile chasing after. Overload finds the 4th kill. Sunstar now in this 1-on-1. Make that a 5 versus 1. But a 5-0. The ace out for the Unicorns.
The Unicorns of Love. Giants getting the footing back here.
Oh, Chachi gets the assassinate onto Sunstar. Will it be enough for them to win this fight? Well, Chachi trades his life for it.
Finish.
Oh, Sivir no flash. Done Irelia. She got this. Nice.
Okay, Watson dropping low himself. He did manage to gobble up Maxwell. There's the kill coming out. And Maxwell jumping on to Exile as well. Visit Chachi will be backing away before turning it around once again. Smitty J on top of his opposing mid laner for the kill. Exile looking for the cleanup. Move still very healthy. Smitty J on Exile, unable to finish him up. He has to flash away from the tower. Chachi, he's still alive. Maxwell, critical HP. Move coming in. One on time. First to move. And now Exile's coming in on tonight. Now he's getting chased after. Sunstar, it's all about damage control now from Giants, but Sunstar has to go back into the fight.
Check them more. I can kill up. Finish. Nice, guys. But. Krakow, guys. Okay, nice.
I love this game.
Man, I didn't want to go Poland, but I need to go now.
And in convincing fashion, 3-1 in this series. Unicorns of Love take it over Giants and punch in their tickets to Krakow.